was writing the movements of Partita, I can't say when I was writing Partita because it didn't really exist as a full piece until I kind of got to the end of it and realized kind of how I wanted to tie things off. At that time, I was playing for a lot of dance classes in New York, like ballet and modern dance, and watching them move and watching them make, certain choices and loving that so much and wanting to kind of design, I don't know, music that feels like dance or feels like movement, or you have a sense of foreground and background and a sense of when, suddenly all the dancers are in one spot and they move forward or they scatter. Those kinds of balance and design decisions.
There's this one moment where,
oh yeah,
that's my absolute favorite moment. It always gets me. It's amazing.
I think that's one of my favorites too. That particular line and those words I wrote when I was home in North Carolina, looking out at the water, the Albemarle Sound, which is a place where I had grown up and I'd seen it from childhood, and it was this sense of being unable to reach back to the past and not knowing what happens in the future, and this sense of being unable to hold what you want to hold. The first part of it that I wrote was actually the last movement, Passacaglia. And that only started in the first summer when Roomful of Teeth, the ensemble that I sing with and that sings the piece, we had just formed. We were just figuring out what we were. And, I came in one day with this idea. I said, hey guys, I want to hear us go from this guttural sound, with talking and texting, just this kind of feeling, and then snap up into a chord, which is really that sort of last thing that you hear, but that was the beginning of the piece. And then I, had an idea of wanting to hear a certain chord progression, but with different vowel sounds. So you hear it in the o, ah, ah, really hearing those really stark colors. Then the next summer I wrote Courant, which is, I guess, the third movement. And then I had this idea of wanting to still think about the artist Saul LeWitt, whose text you hear.
Detail in the pattern.
That's T.S. Eliot. Detail in the pattern is movement. But from the midpoint of the left side, halfway between, all those sort of wall drawing directions are from Saul LeWitt. So I wrote Courant the next summer, thinking about how his paintings are very, sometimes very geometrical. And if you feel like he's sort of weaving with textiles, it's almost like a textile artist. So I wanted this sense of weaving and rhythm and pattern. Then the third summer, I knew what I wanted to do. There was some echo of Passacaglia that I wanted to make, which is Allemande, which starts actually with text, mixed with square dance calls. So it has the dance, but also this idea of words and directions and something very technical becoming the opposite of that. So with music, we write, lines and dots and these instructions that become music, which is so wild and sounds nothing like what it looks like. And Saul LeWitt was doing this with painting, and square dancers do this with calls. So the thing you say is nothing like the thing that it creates, which is the swirling mass of people. I'm obsessed with that phrase, the detail of the pattern is movement, but also with this idea of what do you notice? Do you see the pattern? Is there a pattern? Does there need to be a pattern? Just the act of thinking about the phrase sort of does the thing that the phrase is. It's like I go into the circular place of which is the detail, which is the movement, which is the pattern.
Right.
And it's something that I find kind of encourages one to look closer at something or to listen more closely. There is something there. Is there movement? Is there some pattern in there that I haven't noticed?
Do you sometimes change stuff in the performance?
I think a lot of things by this point are fairly set in terms of tempo. We've gotten faster over the years, and then certain times, if the atmosphere feels right, we'll, like any music, you just hold or stretch or build things slightly differently, slight different colorations. But with the speaking, everyone's a little bit different. Some people in the group always say the exact same words that they've been speaking for the last 5 years. They never change it. I have a friend who says, I just make things up all the time. Sometimes I talk about my husband. And I think that's really great. The effect is quite similar and maybe is even more interesting. But that's the only place where it's really improvisatory. And it's not really supposed to be, but we've let it go. But there are some things in the piece that are notated with a free rhythm chant, plain chant notation. But now the rhythm is almost so ingrained in our bodies, it never changes. But the idea is that there is freedom there. It's not a set. Like the part that you were talking about before, toward you, is the rhythm is not set, but we've found over time that we've sort of established this certain pattern.